Good to see all your faces across the whole globe. What a blessing for this global community. So this week's Torah portion is Vayeshev. But before we get into the story, one of my favorite Hebrew words is abracadabra. Avra kedavra. I create as I speak. So while the magical tradition has subsumed this phrase as their prelude to any kind of sleight of hand, in fact, it's a key concept in the beginning of Genesis, in this book that we've been going into depth over these past weeks. Abracadabra, avra kedavra. God speaks the world into being, and that's our creation story. That's our creation myth. And as all of us are, I believe, reflections of the divine, our words too create worlds, and even more so, our interpretations. The story of Joseph and Hanukkah intersect tonight. Both guide us to a greater awareness and shine light on the power of interpretation, our capacity to reframe our experiences. Vayeshev, this week's Torah portion, is rife with family strife. Jealousy, fighting, misinterpretation runs rampant. At the outset of our story, we learn that Jacob, who is now also called Yisrael, loves Joseph, one of his sons, more than any of the other sons, planting here the seed of brotherly conflict. And immediately following hearing this, Joseph tells everybody his dreams. He has two dreams. The first dream is that he has a sheaf of wheat, and all of his brothers' sheaves of wheat are bowing down to him. And then in his second dream, he sees a sun and a moon and 11 stars, all also prostrating themselves to him. So I experience Joseph's dreams as foreshadowing what is to come in his life journey, connecting, first of all, to the tree of life in the Garden of Eden, which in some midrash say that, in fact, the tree of life was one giant stalk of wheat. We know that wheat in the Jewish tradition is a symbol of wisdom. At the same time, it's connecting to the blessing that was given to Abraham about his descendants, that they will be as numerous and as numerous as the stars. So perhaps Joseph didn't realize the meaning behind these dreams at this point. His brothers definitely did not. They received it negatively and interpreted it maliciously. They did not possess the capability of reframing this moment for young Joseph. And because of their interpretation, the Talmud teaches us that Joseph had to wait 22 years for the fulfillment of these dreams due to their interpretation or their misinterpretation. Over those years, Joseph's journey was one of ascents and descents, and what I love to call, and you've heard me say it throughout this week, roller coaster spirituality. His journey took him down into dark places, thrown into pits, sold into slavery, taken down into Egypt, put into a prison. Though he ultimately will rise and be second in command of Egypt, his journey was not easy. He could have cursed God at any point. He didn't, reframing each stage of his life in the light of, this is where I am to be right now. It might not be exactly where I want to be, and it feels uncomfortable, even painful. But if I add resistance to my pain, it will only cause suffering. Can I accept each moment of my journey as neither good nor bad, but a part of my practice, a part of my story, and in turn strive to bring light in where it is dark? The holiday of Hanukkah walks alongside Joseph in this reframing practice. Hanukkah, the harbinger of winter, where the sun bows out early and darkness reigns supreme. It is this moment that we kindle flames of our tradition, celebrating the festival. This is the first festival we celebrated in 2 months. But what are we celebrating? Hanukkah, like our story tonight, is about family conflict. At its core lies Jewish civil guerrilla warfare, with the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim priests, fighting against Antiochus and Hellenized Jews. Hanukkah is thus a celebration of the victory of the Maccabees and the reclamation and rededication of the temple, the cultic Jewish center of life. But is this the story that we have always been told? There is barely any mention of Hanukkah in the Talmud. Of course, it's not found in the Bible at all. And when it is mentioned in our Jewish sources, it has a brief connection to anything that happened in the Maccabees, but the focus becomes on finding one bottle of oil that was found in a desecrated temple, which miraculously lasted for 8 days. This is Hanukkah's double identity. Matzah, we will learn, and we always talk about, has double identity. Hanukkah also has a double identity. One is a battle story about the Jewish identity, and one is also about seeking the miraculous, right here. And here, each and every one of us are, and we are the storytellers. The power of interpretation and of reframing always lies in our grasp. From Joseph, the great dreamer, the Talmud teaches us that a dream that is not interpreted is like a letter that is not read. Even more importantly, it has to be interpreted for the good, because all dreams follow the mouth. This is something Joseph, his brothers, and each one of us has to learn. And it's not just for dreams, it's for our words, our interpretations, our capacity to reframe a situation that is so important to all of our journeys through life. When I look at the Hanukkah menorah in front of us, I see 8 empty spaces to place candles, 8 places of potential, 8 places to be vulnerable, 8 places to bear witness to our story, 8 places to experience the miraculous. And hovering above all of these 8 candles is the shamash, this helper candle, the one that shines on the others and helps light their way. In the empty spaces where each candle gets placed, I see the multiple times in Joseph's life that felt like a downward spiral. A pit he was thrown into, a moment when things were not going Joseph's way. And I'm reminded that Joseph didn't see it that way. That each moment was a threshold. And each stage of his journey had the opportunity to be experienced, interpreted, and reframed. Joseph reminds himself, this is what God is asking of me. This is what God intends. This is part of the spiritual journey. Each time I was sent down, each challenging moment was just another opportunity for me to create light, to transform this descent into an ascent. Each moment a socket, a candle cup to fill with light. And so in discussing the placement of the Hanukkah menorah, though today most all of us place it in the window, it's intended to be placed outside of the doorway's threshold. But which side? Since the mezuzah is placed on the right-hand side of the door, the menorah is placed on the left side. Right? The mezuzah guides us into our sanctuary, and the menorah shines its light out. And this is such a beautiful image for me. Walking through thresholds and being surrounded by mitzvot, being surrounded by these pathways of goodness that awaken us to bring more light into the world. And so I want to extend this mitzvah-filled threshold mentality beyond the physical structure of the doorway into every step along the way. Each step filled with light. Each step a miracle. Each step reframed as a threshold moment. Each word imbued with the magic of creating new meaning. Whether it's interpreting Joseph's dreams, retelling the Hanukkah story, or reflecting on our own lives, may we never underestimate the power of interpretation. May we never forget the possibility of reframing. Our words are fire that light the sky in the darkest point of the year. May we be that light. May this be our practice for Hanukkah. As we place these candles in these pits, into these spaces of possibility, that we be reminded of the power that we have to interpret, to transform, and to reframe our story into a bright light of possibility. Each one of us a candle of infinite light.